Jocko Willink said that once people stop making excuses, stop blaming others, and take ownership of everything in their lives, they are compelled to take action to solve their own problems. So whether 2025 was an amazing year or an awful year or just an average year, if you want to grow, if you want to get better, if you want to make progress in 2026, don't make excuses. Don't blame anyone or anything else. Don't be a victim. Just own it. Welcome to the Matt Ware Show, a podcast for leaders who want more and won't settle for less. Straight talk to help you lead better, live bolder, and not lose yourself in the process. If you're serious about going to the next level in life and leadership, you're in the right place. Well, hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Matt Ware Show, where we are passionate about helping leaders go to the next level personally and professionally. And when this episode drops, we're only going to be about 2 weeks away from the end of 2025, beginning of 2026. And this is actually one of my favorite times of the year. And not because of the holidays, although, of course, I love all the Christmas festivities and all those things. But for me, one of the highlights of every year is taking time to reflect on the previous year and plan for the upcoming year. And I usually block out at least a full day, sometimes more, usually the week between Christmas and New Year's, to just really get away from the world and just kind of sit and think about where I'm at and everything that's happened over the last year, the good and bad, the positive and negative, and just kind of process all of that. And then in light of that reflection, in light of where I am and where I want to go, begin putting plans in place to move that direction. Okay, it's kind of my annual, review and preview. My goal is always to not go into a new year, but to grow into a new year, right? That's kind of a John Maxwell idea. We don't go into something, we grow into something. Growth is the only guarantee that tomorrow will be better than today. Personal growth is the only way we don't get stagnant. It's the only way we don't get stuck. Growth is the only thing that moves us into a future that is bigger and better than the past. And the truth is, if you're done growing, you're done leading. If you've stopped getting better, I promise your organization has stopped getting better too. Your team has stopped. Your momentum has stopped. You may not know it yet. You may not see it yet. You may not feel it yet. But the truth is that if you are no longer growing, you are no longer leading. And that's why for me, this time of year really is so important, because it's an incredible opportunity to get super intentional about our growth. And we do that by reflecting on the past and preparing for the future, right? It's a look back and a look forward. And what's interesting to me is that some people think that just because they're a year older, that they're a year wiser, that they're a year better, right? Because they lived another year or they led another year, just because they have more experience, that somehow they got better. But in reality, experience doesn't make you better. Only evaluated experience makes you better. Okay, you won't get better just because you did it. You'll only get better if you intentionally and accurately assess and evaluate what you did so that you can learn from it. Too many leaders do something and then immediately move on to do the next thing. And they don't take the time to evaluate and adjust and improve so that they get better and better each and every time. And that's really what I want to focus on over these next few episodes, how we can intentionally evaluate, assess, sort of reflect on and digest our experience so that we get the most out of it and we grow the most from it. So today what we're going to talk about is what I believe one of the most important keys to personal growth, personal improvement, and maturity as leaders. And that's the idea of ownership. You're probably familiar with the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Fantastic book on leadership by two Navy SEALs about their combat experiences in Iraq and the lessons that they learned from all of that. And when I read this a number of years ago, it rocked my world because it really speaks to this concept, this premise that great leaders know how to take ownership for everything in their lives, for everything in their world, for the failures and the successes, the hits and the misses, the things that were amazing and the things that were absolutely awful. Good leaders take responsibility for their part, but great leaders take responsibility for every part. Extreme ownership means that no matter what the situation, no matter who contributed to it, no matter what circumstances and whether we can or can't control them, as leaders, we're going to take responsibility. We're going to own the problem. We're going to develop solutions. And when I first read it and was first introduced to the concept, my initial impression was that seemed really unfair. I mean, this is big. This is heavy. This doesn't seem fair. I mean, it can't all rest on me. How can I possibly be responsible for every little thing that happens on my team and in my department and in my organization? But as I thought about it more, I realized that, if what John Maxwell says is true, that everything rises and falls on leadership, if that's really true, then I have to face the reality that both the rise and the fall rests on me as the leader. I know it feels good to put the blame on someone or something else. It makes us feel better when we can point fingers. The problem is that if you put blame on others, then it's out of your hands to change it. If it's their problem, then you have no power. If you adopt a victim mentality, then you can't produce change. And our job as leaders is to be change agents. So if we're going to change it, we first have to own it. And if you're like me and you're spending some time reflecting on your year over these next few weeks, I want to give you a few things to think about, a few things that you can assess around this, 4 areas that I think you need to own in 2025. And I think these apply both personally and professionally. I think they work at home and at work, no matter what area of life you're talking about, because if you're a leader, you take these things seriously. It means you've got to own these things no matter what domain of life it happens to fall in. Okay, 4 things that you have to own for 2025. Number 1, you have to own the failure. Own the failure. All right, I'm starting with this one because it's the hardest. If you can get on board with this one, if you keep listening, watching, then the other ones will come easier. All right. As leaders, we have to own the failures that we created when we made wrong decisions or led in the wrong direction. I think sometimes there's something inside of us as leaders that doesn't want to do this because we think that if we acknowledge our mistakes, then the people around us are going to lose trust in us, whether that's our families, our team, our employees, whatever it is. But actually, in my experience, I think it works the opposite. I think that when a leader makes a mistake and owns it, it doesn't decrease respect, it actually increases respect. When you have enough humility to admit that you're wrong, to own it, to learn from it, your people will love you even more. The concept of extreme ownership says that leaders have to own everything in their world because there's no one else to blame. So that means that if you're in charge, you're responsible. You own what went right and you own what went wrong. Michael Hyatt is a great leadership voice in this space, and I've learned so much from him over the years. And he talks about this. He talks about that when he was leading his company back in the Great Recession, 2008, 2009, he was blaming the lack of profitability on the economic downturn, which of course was real. It was valid, and he had no control over that, over what was happening in the market. But he had an executive coach that challenged him, in spite of all of those things, that he needed to ask, what is it about my leadership that contributed to this result? Man, talk about a tough question to wrestle with. This is now one of my favorite questions to ask myself and the other leaders I work with. What is it about your leadership that contributed to this result? No excuses, no blaming, no pointing fingers at anyone or anything else. Just strip all of that away. What is it about your leadership that contributed to this result? Think about that in your personal life, in your professional life, in your health, in your family, in your finances, with your team. How did your leadership, in whatever area we're talking about, whatever area you're evaluating, how did your leadership contribute to this result? Ask it honestly and answer it honestly, because that's what's required of you as a leader who owns their failures. So number 1, own your failures. Number 2, own your successes. Own the success. Okay, here's the other side of the coin. If you're going to own the failure, you've got to own the success too. And I think it's challenging for some leaders to own their failures. I think it's also challenging for other leaders to own their successes. Some of us have been conditioned with this, sort of warped view of humility, and especially if you're a person of faith like I am, sometimes we were kind of raised in environments that taught us to carry this kind of, I don't know, false humility, like, well, it's not me, it's just God, right? You ever hear these really religious athletes, talking after a game, and I'm all for thanking God, right? But don't act like he's the one that came out on the field and threw the touchdown for you, right? Like you were a part of this, you contributed. Okay, I think it was C.S. Lewis that said humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's just thinking of yourself less. In other words, it's about making your focus serving other people, which of course is exactly what we do as leaders, but false humility is not good leadership. Listen, if you don't own your success, you're undermining your gifts. You're undermining the calling, the talent, the purpose that you have and are living for. Own your failures, of course, but also own your successes. Otherwise, you're not managing this tension well in your leadership. There are two big reasons I think you need to own your successes. Number one is because it gives you confidence. It gives you confidence. When you humbly but honestly acknowledge what worked, what went well, what succeeded, it builds your confidence for the future. It helps you make better decisions because you can look back on that track record. Listen, we should spend just as much time evaluating what went right as we do what went wrong. We can learn from our successes. Andy Stanley says this. He says, if you don't know why it's working when it is, you won't know how to fix it when it's not. Okay, you've got to celebrate the wins. You've got to own your successes. Okay, but it doesn't just give you confidence in your own success. The second reason you got to own it is because it gives the people around you confidence too. There is an appropriate "I told you so" in leadership. It's good for you to occasionally coach your team. Here's what I said to do, and you did it, and now look at the result we got. Okay, that's not arrogance, that's confidence. Your team needs to see when your decision and your direction is what led them to win. And as you look back over your year, you have to own the failure, and you also have to own those successes. The third area that you've got to own is you have to own the decision. Own the decision. As leaders, one of our primary responsibilities is to make decisions. And it's interesting. This topic kind of keeps coming up in the podcast. And so I think I probably need to do a whole episode about decision making soon. But for today, as it relates to what we're talking about right now, let me just say this. Whatever decision you make, you have to own it. Whatever decision you make, you have to own it. And I know we want success and we want to avoid failure. And so sometimes there is this temptation to make sure we have all the information and all the facts and that we're totally, absolutely 100% sure. And what I want you to know is that the outcome is never going to be certain. Your success is never going to be guaranteed. You're never going to be 100%. Okay, if you wait till you're 100% sure, you're too late because there's no such thing as a perfect decision in leadership. Leaders make decisions and then they make those decisions work. There's no perfect decision. So you make the best decision you can with the information you have when the decision needs to be made. Make the decision and then make the decision work. So whatever decisions you made this last year, whether they worked or not, whether they were a smashing success or an abject failure, as a leader, personally and professionally, with your spouse, with your kids, with your friends, with your team, with your employees, with your organization, own your decisions and the results from them. Okay, own the failures, own the successes, own the decisions, and number 4, own the mission. Own the mission. That may seem like an odd statement or weird language, so let me explain it. The concept of extreme ownership says, I don't just take responsibility for my job, I take responsibility for everything that impacts the mission of my organization. Okay, if you're a leader, this is so important because what this means is that you're not just focused on doing your specific job. It means you're focused on all of the work, all the preparation, all the contingency planning, all the detail. You've got a backup for your backup. You own the entire mission of this thing that you're leading. You're responsible for everything. Okay, this just has to be our mindset as leaders. I don't own my part, I own the whole thing. As far as I'm concerned, the success or failure of this entire organization rests solely on me. I own the mission of this organization. And I know that sounds like work language, professional language, but I would say this applies personally too. Okay, you can have this attitude, you can have this mindset in your marriage, in your relationship with your kids, in the family vacation, in the remodeling project on your house. I own the whole mission of what we're trying to accomplish. I own the whole thing of what we've set out to do. And so as you look back over this year, how did the mission move forward or not? And how can you own that? The greatest ability is responsibility. And for whatever other abilities you have or are growing in right now, let me challenge you. You need to grow in your responsibility. And listen, you don't have to wait till someone gives you responsibility before you take responsibility. Some people want to get paid more or promoted more before they'll perform more, but it doesn't work that way. Okay, get this. When you take more responsibility than you have, you'll get more responsibility than you've got. So if you're a leader at any level, take responsibility and own it. Own the whole mission. Own the failure, own the success, own the decision, and own the mission. I think there's nothing more powerful than really taking a hard, long, honest look at the last year, reflecting back on 2025 with all its ups and downs and the good and the bad and all of it, and just say, I'm the kind of person who can own it in every area, personally and professionally. And I know it's hard sometimes. I know it's heavy sometimes, but it's so important because it's the only way that we can change. We can't change if we won't own it. And it's also the only way we can grow because we only grow when we evaluate our experiences and become leaders who get better because of them. Hey, if this encouraged you or challenged you or, I don't know, ticked me off or something, let me know. Okay, shoot me a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, I'd love to hear from you. And if someone you know could benefit from this, maybe somebody you know needs to own it. Okay, don't be too obvious about it, but somehow find a way to share it with them or send it to them or something. As always, you can find me at themattware.com and at themattware on all the socials. Until next time, go lead better and live bolder.